Steve, if you'd lead us in a short prayer. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Dear Lord, please be with us today as we deliberate the business of the county commissioners. Help us, Lord, to keep in mind that your guidance for us and just a general goodwill, Lord, that we want to show to our residents. And Lord, just help us to work hard and be smart and help us, Lord, to do the very best we can. Ask all these things, Lord, in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. All right. Have you had a chance to take a look at the minutes from August 1st, 2023?
Yes, I did. I didn't see anything. I'll make a motion to accept the minutes.
Second.
Okay. All right. Tony, what did you have for us today?
I have the weekly health insurance claims from Allied, and you will notice when you look at this, in answer to State Board of Accounts that had expressed they wanted verification that the claimants were actually our claimants, not someone else's. But there was also HIPAA and privacy rules that we were worried about. So in talking with State Board of Accounts at the time, it was decided there is a way for our office to look and make sure that the claimants are our claimants. So when you guys get this every week, one of the three that can get in there and see it, which is Bree, myself, and Shannon, I believe. But it will be me that ultimately signs off and verifies that they are indeed our claimants. So I wrote in auditor verified the claimants. So that should suffice. Once you approve it, you are saying, okay, you looked at it, we should be good. That should satisfy State Board.
So you guys can look at that without seeing all the private medical.
Well, we have to take that off.
Right.
I mean, we shrink down the spreadsheet, so to speak. I contacted Mike Olis of Allied, and they can't really think of a way, at least at this point, to give us just that information. They've never been asked that. But anyway, in saying that, the claims, weekly health insurance claims for Allied this week are $57,093.21, $57,093.21. Of that, medical is $18,368.47, and pharmacy is $38,724.74 for the total of $57,093.21. I wrote all that down for you, so it's already got your signature, but when this will enable you all to look at it.
Okay.
Are there any questions on that? I said that right, didn't I, Bree? Everything I said was, we're able to look at that and.
Yeah.
Okay, if there's no questions, I'd take a motion to approve the medical
Claims.
insurance claims. Yeah. All right.
And the only other thing I was going to say, since we're discussing insurance, we have three agencies here. I'm not sure everybody's got an agenda, but the insurance discussion will be moved more towards the end of the meeting. And I did confer with Mark as to whether or not this was okay to do, because I figured each of the agencies might not want the other agencies to hear what they're pitching. I wouldn't want a competitor pizza place looking to see what I do on proprietary stuff. So when we get to that point, one agency will go at a time. The other two will be asked to step in the lobby, and you'll be given a few minutes to pitch, and that'll be towards the end of the meeting, just letting everybody know.
Is that okay if we move you kind of down on the agenda for that purpose? I know it's gonna make you sit here a little bit longer, but, yeah. Okay. I don't want to hear any heavy sighs from the audience either. Usually I hear those from Tony, not from the audience. Yeah,
Just from natural born politicians to hear that from.
all right. So, very good. All right, if that's okay with everybody, we'll proceed that way.
And that is all that I have today.
Okay.
The other things are the clerk. Well, you know what? Let me bring up the clerk report. Treasurer's report, he is here, but the clerk, I emailed you the clerk report, so all we would need is.
Make a motion to accept that report.
Second.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. All right. Brad, would you like to come up?
Sure, I would love to.
All right. Talk to us about cornfields and stop signs and whatever.
Not this weekend.
Oh,
Real quick, I have one permit, and it is for NiSource. They do, it's NIPSCO, and they are installing a gas service at a residence at 6461 North, 300 East. And it's just an inch service. They already got a main over there. They just got a board.
What township is that, Brett?
You always improve. You're gonna make me sharpen up on this, Tony.
Hey, somebody got to know it besides me.
I gotta think of crossroads and all that, but yep, that's the only one I got, so.
you got a 1 out of 12 chance.
I know.
All right. Yeah.
Make a motion.
Second. So while you guys are signing this, basically, our chip seal, if we would have had 4 good days, we'd be done. You know, with the rain, it put us back, but not a big deal, but we should be done in about 4 days. And we do have 3 tandem axle trucks down right now, so that kind of slows it up too. So we brought single axles out. We normally don't run them just because they don't hold half as much. But yeah, we got 3 trucks down right now, so yeah, one's at Stoops, one's at Selkings, and one's in our shop.
That sounds serious though. I mean, is that a
One-
coincidence or?
No, the one's been giving us issues, thought we had it fixed, and it went down again. The other one, it's issues from a couple of years ago that came back again. And one of them just, the axle, one of the nuts came loose on the inner, and it kind of chewed up the axle a little bit, so. But, yeah, it's kind of common all 3 at once, but it happens. But yeah, we've got 48.5 miles done before today, so we're getting there.
Very good. Any more problems like we had with 400 where that losing the stone off of it?
No. So far, here again, so far, so good.
Okay.
First get done with it, there's a lot of loose stone there. You give it a couple weeks, it's all. Yep. So that's all I got.
Very good. Any questions for Brad?
Yes. We talked about the speed limit on 950, and we were supposed to do that after July
Yeah,
1st.
was that actually approved then, Mark? The bill for the commissioners being able to decide the speed limits?
I don't recall if it was or not. I don't know, Clayton.
I mean, it was still live at the end of July there, or the beginning of July, but I didn't know if that ever actually got passed.
I'll have to check.
Which one? Sorry.
On
That
the
lane?
speed
Where'd
limit,
Matt go?
Oh,
A house
you
or
stepped
something.
out of the wrong.
Yeah. Okay.
I'll pull it up.
And I've got another question. The gentleman that has the trees in his garage on the
Wayne
line,
Grove.
he's called me twice and I don't know how to respond back to him.
We talked about some of the things we could possibly do with that, so,
possibly could vacate it.
I mean, I think we talked a little bit, but we probably should take care of the issue before we vacate it, or how would that work?
It's up to you.
Okay.
We'll have to weigh the options.
Okay. I mean, we can, so another thing too, I forgot, we are meeting with the gentleman with the fence on the bridge on 500 South tonight. Mike, Mark, me, Clayton.
So we're gonna actually, yes, that worked, sending in the letter by deputy. So we are having a meeting tonight, so maybe we can talk about this
Yeah,
tonight too a
we
little bit, so, yeah,
And then you'll get back with me.
yes,
Maybe we can go see him and let him know what we're gonna do.
yeah, that'll be fine.
Okay.
So, yeah,
Very good. Any other questions? Okay.
thank you.
All right. We're a little bit ahead, as far as building maintenance. I don't know if we want to. What's that?
I don't know where Rick's at.
Yeah. Mike, did you have something to go over as far as, since Rick isn't here?
Yeah, I was dealing with the council meeting this morning.
Okay. Yeah, since Rick isn't here, why don't you go ahead and,
Jack said to give Steve and Steve. this
Oh,
document.
thank you.
So I said I would do
You're the
that on
courier.
the way up. So what we tabled last meeting that we had with you guys was that camera situation. I think you guys were on board with getting the other part completed. And so we wanted, you wanted some time to think through it. I said that I was probably going to present to council because I need to get the extra money. They've already come in early to do the EOC room. I wasn't supposed to be doing that work until September, so we're going to get billed soon. So that's why I had to get with council, because they're going to invoice us for that. And we're going to be over with everything else if I didn't get the approval for the extra money this morning. But they did approve the camera as well and the display in the back. But
so we
that was
just need to
something-
approve that
was-
work to be done?
Yeah, for you guys, I know Steve, you wanted to think about it. But just so that we could save some time, I decided that I need to get to council anyway to talk about the other things to get that done. And I might as well add it to see whether they were on board with it or not ahead of time. It kind of saves us a little bit of time, but
What do you guys think? Would you like to go ahead with that project, or what's your thoughts?
We're just
on-
talking about the camera, the camera in the rear of 120
in a display,
and a display.
yeah,
Everything else we already approved,
yes.
right? So we're
That was the 25,000, correct?
Right.
Yeah. And these, like I outlined this morning, these are special pieces of equipment. They're not like going out the ring or blink or something like that and put it on camera. These are not the same thing as that, so.
So for Mark's benefit, the council meeting, the council approved 90,261 and whatever change that was from ARPA for overages in the WebEx project, which since council did that, it now is coming back here so that you can make sure that any procurement that needs done or whatever, but both bodies have to approve it. The council already did. Now the commissioners are discussing it.
That 90,600, would that include the 25?
90,261, I think it was, and that did include
The 25.
the camera, 25.
They put that on our.
I'll make a motion.
And I'll second that. From a training room perspective, I think you need that camera on the presenter, especially if you're going to archive those and make them available for people to view offline. That's pretty much that's a given, I think.
Yeah.
I think it also allows for the COOP plan to be
Yeah,
Right.
put into effect.
Yeah, if you take a look at that whole situation down there and to bring a court into there, what the problem that we got, gentlemen, we can move a court someplace else, but if it's a long-term thing, not a one day, but if it's a long-term thing, that down there, we can move their staff into that as well. And that's unique. In EOC room, there's no place to put their staff in. We can put the courts there, but their staff won't be there. Anywhere else, this could be an ideal situation. I mean, the judge could be up at my office. I'll move out. There's ways that I'll move out to make room for the courts as well as my department so that they can come in and bring their staff in as much as we can, you know? Because it's pretty much needed for those people that they're there.
All right. I did see that Rick and Jean came in. Did you guys want to come up too? We're kind of, since you were here yet, we went ahead with Mike's presentation, but you're welcome to come up. I don't know if you want to present together or if you had anything.
Rick, do you need me here or Mike? Do you want me here? Sure. Okay. Right.
I think he got roped into that one.
Thanks.
Mike, the way to say it is, you don't need me here, do you?
Yeah.
Future.
All right.
As you said, we just walked in, so I don't know where Mike was, but.
Well, we just approved the extra camera
Oh,
in the room. So we'd approved the other stuff last week, so the camera is now
Okay.
been approved, so.
What I have is, it's the generator. We'd like to present some quotes for the generator. What we're gonna present to you is the pad for the generator, getting the wire down through the alley and down into the basement. That's what this is. So, yeah, you got a handout here that the quotes are in there. There's a scope of work in there.
Thanks, Gene.
Give you a chance to look at it.
That's name?
BLA.
Thank you.
And these are not the generator itself. That's already a done.
Generator's already a done thing.
Yeah.
This is, like I said, it's just getting the location to put the generator, fenced in, slab.
So this is above and beyond the 249,000.
No,
This is part of that.
this is part of it.
Part of that, okay.
Yep.
Just
Excuse me.
clarifying for the minutes.
Yeah, it's part of it.
So we have three bidders, Rick, is that what we're looking at here?
Yes,
Coppersmith, Shambaugh, and Service Electric.
that's correct.
In your reading, Gene or Rick, we're looking at apples to apples, you think, comparisons?
I say we are, and if Gene wants to intervene on that, I mean, I've read through the quotes. They've all followed the scope of work. So I'm comfortable with saying that, yes, all three have included everything that the scope of work is
Good deal. Thank you.
dictated.
Appreciate your expertise on that, because I have no clue when I'm looking at this.
That's why we have Gene.
On these from Generac, this first one, that net price, is that with those included, those adders or not?
I think that's just the generator quote. I don't think that's actually the,
So that's not with the adders?
I just included the generator
yeah.
documentation, so you had a reference to say, this is the generator.
This is the bidder. This is the generator provider. These are the three bidders.
Yeah.
Coppersmith, Shambaugh, and Service.
So this, I'm looking at this now, this price here.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah, that's already been approved.
Assume that's been ordered. I know that's been ordered.
49.
Yeah.
Yes.
You know, not knowing any different, I guess the only thing I've got to go on is the price, and Shambaugh looks like they've given us the low offer, so that would be my motion.
What's the
Is
amount?
that your recommendation? Is that
Yes.
the recommendation? Okay. My motion would be to approve the bid, the quote from Shambaugh and Sons for $253,930.
Is there any extenuating circumstances as far as that would account for the difference in bids between Service Electric and Shambaugh? I mean, anything that we should know to,
I don't think so, no.
okay,
Because gentlemen, the room, different portion of this elevator project, the room, the power room that we've all came to know as power room, that $71,000 that we approved, Service Electric got that job because they were lower bidders. So we do have two different contractors on this completion of this job.
Do you perceive that a conflict there that,
We don't, because it's kind of two separate
good,
and basically two different areas of the building as well, so.
you're not going to get one of these numbers, huh?
Yeah, there's some mixing of work down in the boiler room area, but there's no mixing of the two projects together. They're two independent contracts, or two independent projects.
it's not like Shambaugh would come back and say, well, I don't know why they did it this way, we're gonna have to.
No,
Make
that's for me to oversee, and then, it's
Okay.
stipulated that they've got to meet National Electric Code requirements. So it might be an opinion of a different method of installation, but they can still meet code and do what it's supposed to do.
Okay. So with that in mind, it's pretty much a dollar for dollar, apples to apples. And so as we look at that between Service Electric and Shambaugh, and then you've made the motion to approve Shambaugh as our contractor.
Second it.
Okay. So, all right. Well, as always, Gene, we appreciate your work on this and being our expert in this project, so.
How the resident said.
Yep.
I just have two things, just to maybe updates for you, since I'm here. Shredding for the buildings here will take place this Friday. Tony just sent an email out, very soon to send all that out, so I wanted you to let you know that. Also Friday, the fire extinguishers will be tested in this building. And I look to have, we may have to replace several of them because they're kind of at the end of their life, so.
So they can't be just recharged?
No, that we're past that, I think. I mean, they're still good, but they're past the time. So I don't know what that number will be yet, but that's all I got.
Okay. Very good. Any questions for Rick? All right. So,
Thank you.
I should ask where we're at with the roof.
Oh, did get an update yesterday. According to, well, weather related, the last week of August, they should be here. Okay. Weather. They've gotten slowed up with some of those potential downfalls we've had around
Oh,
here in the
yeah.
area. As far as 3 inches of rain at one time, but
Yeah.
I just got an email yesterday saying they're looking for the end of the month here, last week.
Okay. Cool. And then 125 is done?
For the door latches are on, everything is in there. I believe Bob is doing something to the cables down there as far as wiring some stuff, but
We are networking. Remember last week we had some approved, for the back wall, the camera and the display.
Yeah.
They haven't come in and done that yet.
Yeah.
So,
But it's usable?
yes.
Okay. Good. All right. And then the office is ready for the new employee?
Got the desk in, the
Desk and
chairs,
chairs
Okay.
in.
all that stuff is there.
Good, good.
At some time at a later point, the old chairs that were in here, the old chairs that you had up there, they're down there in the hallway. I need to
Steve wants his back.
But at some point, I mean, I know there had been some requests for some of them, something to think about.
Good.
Well, if you're okay for a little bit,
Yeah.
let's get settled and. Do we need a contract for this to sign, or Shambon sign?
Probably will. Can I get back with you?
Yeah.
You know, and I'm wondering if that included the fact that they are not suspended or debarred from doing federal business. Because that's a requirement.
Yeah.
If they don't get that to you, let me know so that I can look on sam.gov and make sure that we can sign off.
I'll ask for both. I'll ask for that.
That's federal.
Yeah. I did get with BTS about that too, to connect to.
Anything over 25,000 federal dollars involved, you gotta have that certificate.
Yep.
Thank you, guys. Ed, do you have anything for us?
Yes, I do. It's time for the treasurer's monthly report. You all have a copy of that. It's pretty much self-sufficient, but I know there's a lot of numbers there, so in case you have any questions, here I am. Everything balances. That's the best thing. Years.
And then our finance meeting is coming up.
Yes, I'll get to that.
Okay.
This is mandated. You guys gotta take care of this first.
Any questions on treasury?
Make a motion, to put it in the record.
Second.
Okay,
Okay. Thank you. RFP is going through with the banks. I have proposals or interest from all four banks, so I think we'll have reports or bids from all four. I've been talking with them individually as they've been coming and asking specific questions. We've had a couple of them come into the office already. I have specific deadlines on all the different parts of this. It's my second rodeo with all this. It's going to go a lot simpler than it did 2 years ago. But I think we'll have 4 good bids, and those will be here on Tuesday, August the 22nd, to open the bids. And as we did last time around, you'll give them to me and my staff to go through them in detail and give you my suggestion, and a meeting that we'll have Tuesday, August 29th. And that'll be the Financial Planning Committee meeting. That will be at 9 o'clock morning, rather than 10. And that'll be here in this room.
okay.
So we're all on schedule for all that. The tax sale, we started out with 52, I believe, when it was to the deadline. We had a verification of the final list of 30 as of Friday, July 26th. We've had a couple made since then. I fully expect this will come down to about a dozen or so by the time the tax sale comes around. We're real good on taxes, and then at just last week, Kathy and I attended the the fall ICTA conference down in Louisville. And that was very good. We got some good stuff out of it.
Good.
That's all I have at this time. One more thing. We did a service a couple months ago on our postage machine. We got a report back from that company that did that. Our current postage machine is good. It's in good shape. Everything's working fine. It's going to be end of life in 2027, which is a few years down the road. But the post office knows they're going to be doing some changes, and our machine will not be able to be utilized after that. So sometime in 2027, we are going, well, before that, we're going to have to buy a new postage machine. So.
Okay.
Right now, they're about 7,000. I'm sure there won't be 7,000 in 5 years. So it's up. We might all be out of here.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Thanks, Ed.
You're running it. Compliment and everything else. Just wait for you to get here.
Thank you.
I don't even know if you can get here quicker. I'll be on the field. We got like that.
Yeah, if you want to, and then, that
Just
way
keep
we'll.
going until they come.
Right. Shannon, do you have anything for us? Are you ready?
I don't have anything today.
Okay. One of the things we did want to have a discussion on, we've been discussing, the situation at Golden Meadows with the loss of staff and the discussions with the hospital and recommendations from the hospital. And so, I guess I would, open up that discussion on our plans to move ahead. We have decided to move ahead with, relocating some of the residents to make sure that they're in an appropriate place and getting the appropriate care that they need to get. So at this point, I'd open that discussion. So,
I guess I'll start. I feel like that we've been looking at this now for several weeks, starting with the beginning of when Mark left and as the staff exodus took place. We had to get the hospital involved to help us kind of figure out which direction to go. And so I think I know it's been I've wrestled with it personally, been out there and got to know some of the residents and some of the staff. And when you make it personal like that, sometimes the decision gets tougher. But I think I've come to the point where I think I'm ready to make a decision. Steve, any thoughts?
I'm right there with you. I've sat here for 3 years and we've went through 3 administrators, 2 charge nurses, and it's just like, it's impossible to get people to come out here and work. And, you know, with COVID and everything else, to put people in jobs, it's hard to find good people.
By motion, I didn't want to mess it up, so I wrote it out. It's kind of long, but if you'll indulge me, based on the recommendations of our local experts, as well as my own personal observation of facilities and residents of Golden Meadows, and given my reading and understanding of Indiana Code Title 12, Article 30, which governs the operation of county homes in Indiana, I move that we begin the process of closing Golden Meadows with the goal of ceasing operations within the next 12 months. I believe there are currently better opportunities for most, if not every resident of Golden Meadows to live their best lives in facilities or living situations other than a county home, any county home, not just our county home. While Golden Meadows is a loving, caring home, today's care model for the majority of our residents far exceeds the life we can provide in a county home system. County home system is a leftover from a time before the social safety net that's available to our residents today. I believe 12 months would give our team enough time to work with each resident individually to assess their needs, identify the best situation available in consultation with their family or other loved ones, work through a waiting list or other qualifying process, and place the resident outside of our facility. My number one priority is to provide the best life possible for our residents, and I know we've all talked about that, and I know every conversation we have begins with that as our number one priority. I'm just convinced that life is not at Golden Meadows. So my motion is to move toward closure.
okay, and with that motion, you know, if there's any more discussion, I'd be happy to have discussion to that motion. So,
How many current residents are out there?
20.
20?
Yep. So, if not, if there's a second,
I'll second that.
all right, motion carries.
I'm gonna get a copy of that later, Steve. I'll get a copy of your one.
Okay. So at this point, then we're going to move ahead with, obviously this has to be in cooperation with the county council, but it does give us a directive to move ahead in the interim to continue to provide for residents out there, both with nursing staff, hiring a administrator to oversee the facility, and also hopefully with the continued offer of assistance, both clinical and financial, from the hospital. So at this point, that's our plan to move ahead. So, all right, thank you, guys. Right, Mark's
I
not-
emailed him, I have not heard back.
Mark, did you have anything? for him?
No, I don't believe so.
So we can do that, and maybe we'll get through that before he gets here. You know?
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah.
I'll bring that up later.
Thank you.
So these are final city-approved copies of the interlocal agreement between the county and the city of Decatur for what's been previously discussed, so for the long-term lease of the Merit Center by the Council on Aging, as well as the conveyance of 0.7 acres to this northwest corner of the Merit Center to build the transportation hub for which Michelle and the Council on Aging has been working and got federally funded. I believe, and I know Michelle said this before, but it is exciting for the county because I think this is the first county to be provided with this federal grant in, I think, close to 10 years. So
Yeah, and in order to start up their own,
in order to start their own public transportation
Yeah.
system. Yep.
do you
Well,
have a legal description yet for that 0.7? We need a
We do
survey.
not, and the city's attorney in here, or Ann put in here that the city's responsible to engage the surveyor
Okay,
and get a legal description, so.
all right.
this is a big, big step in being able to move ahead with this project. So from what you've seen of this resolution for this interlocal agreement, are you okay with this as it's being presented?
Yeah, I reviewed it.
Yeah.
We both
Say,
made a few edits.
I said, we both, I mean, I prepared it originally, then Ann came back with the city's approved comments. I accepted those and we made a few minor revisions to it. And yeah, I think I would recommend moving ahead so that we can get actually building that garage sooner rather than later.
Well, to me, it represents an excellent opportunity and an example of cooperation, between the city council, between our commissioner board, between county council, with all the work that you and Mark and Julie Marie have put into this, and all the meetings to come to this point. It's just really exciting for me to see this move ahead, take this step to move ahead. So,
Completely agree.
yes.
Stan, I want to thank you too. I know you've been personally involved in a lot of these meetings and discussions and represented us well. And so thanks for your work on this too.
Yeah, you're welcome. That's exciting.
Make a motion to approve the interlocal agreement for the long-term lease of the Merit Center space
And land that.
and the land acquisition.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you. So do you need these signed?
Yeah,
I'll
let's
just
get
get one signed copy of.
You're good. I missed it.
Totally attested.
I read that. You just read it online.
If I can get a copy as well, that'd be.
maybe sign a couple of them. That way we can send a signed one back to Ann. Yeah.
He wants to sign.
Oh, it was two sides.
Scan ours, they got a copy of it there.
And get one back to Ann.
Here you go. Sign that.
He's getting coffee.
Oh, yeah, that's fine. That's just in council assignment.
Okay. Take care of each other.
That's good.
Turn that by all. Yeah, that helps out.
Yeah, I don't know if we're doing three of them or probably.
Two. That's Mark. You heard me.
There's a second one.
All right, Mark. Anyways. I got two places to sign.
Okay, anything else, Clayton or Mark?
What else would be? Thank you.
Thanks a lot.
Okay. All right, Mark Wynn?
We're going to get a copy back that we have to sign. But I've got two of these.
Stay.
Okay, subdivisions.
What road is this one on?
300 south, 100 east. So this one piece is being broken into,
Here's the second copy.
it's right here.
Okay, so we get that done. Fine. Yeah, and I'll just, like I said, I'll just need one copy at some point. That's what we're talking about. So Angie, we'll wait here.
So this woods, basically what they're breaking into. And this is your plan to get to it.
Let's see on there.
If they was 23 or 30, but you put acres.
Well, it's 13, 10, and 10.
Big expect accuracy, that's 13.342.
Looks like it's a total of 34.3.
That's right, because you got that 3.333 here.
It's 34.4. Okay, motion approved.
All right.
Right now. You know, G Road.
Must be on.
Oh, there's.
Well, that's. No, wait, I get signed first.
Well, they all get on there. We don't care what order they're in.
Right place.
Draw subdivision. It was in, a month or so ago. This building isn't actually, it was livestock years ago. They actually built some cabinets in here. And the son does, and the son's trying to build a house. Close to a shop, so they've taken one piece. This is two. So all of these buildings and barns and house are all on this lot.
So this barn stays with this second lot. It's going right up the side there.
To share the drive, the two does. So it's actually on this side of that driveway.
Mhm.
Had to be 20 feet from the building, they got a little over 20.
Good thing they have a plat book technician, start over there.
Motion approved.
Second.
9.7 acres. 9.7, the rest was it. Okay, that's a lot more. Okay. Only one lot.
There's two lots.
Oh, and then,
0.7 on
oh, two, times two, okay. 8.4, okay.
all I got.
Good.
Thank you, sir.
Yep, thank you, Mark.
You hear the burn?
I'll check it.
Got a number.
All right, how do we want to decide who goes first?
Alphabetical?
We, you want to arm wrestle? Arm wrestle?
Wrestle for it.
Just arm wrestle.
I'm not going up against Mark.
Oh. Okay,
Meeting right now.
yep. Barb, why don't you go first, if that's all right? Okay, if you gentlemen are okay with that? Gentlemen, ladies,
Didn't listen to my
what's that?
said go alphabetical.
Oh, yeah?
Too late now.
House holder, so there.
Well, yeah,
Does that
if
make
you go
you
by
feel
app
better?
holder,
There.
that would work.
Yeah, we changed our minds. We want the other people.
I mean, whatever works.
Changed his mind, he does want the arm wrestle.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah, we could have a WWE contest too.
Gotta put a cage in here, so.
That would be well spent.
Oh,
Next.
What does this cover, Tony? What kind of coverage are we talking about?
this is for property casualty insurance.
Property.
3 agencies are individually making their proposals to become the broker of record for our casualty property insurance. Steve Bailey, did I say that correctly?
Hey, is that what you want to be?
I think I
Did you
said that
grow up?
correctly.
When I grew up, yeah. Who knew, right?
Probably,
20 plus years ago.
if we could stay within a certain time, how
It's up
much,
to you. How
um,
much time do you
how
think
much
is
time do you
reasonable
think
for
is
each group?
We were planning on like 5-ish minutes and then whatever questions
Okay.
you might have. So
yeah,
we
perfect.
want to be respectful of your time.
5 to 10 minutes and then question.
Yep, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah. So I'm Barbara Affolter. This is Darla Fosma. Together, we have a combined almost 50 years of insurance experience. So we want to thank you for the opportunity, and we do want to be respectful of the time. So we're not going to read you our presentation. You guys are capable of doing that yourselves. We just want to highlight a few things, and then any questions that you guys might have, we'll go ahead and answer for you. So first of all, a little about Graber Insurance. So we have been a local agency within Adams County since 1946. We are still locally owned and operated. Our managing owner is Mark Graber, and his uncle Eli is who actually started Graber Insurance. Again, I mentioned that between Darla and I, we have nearly 50 years of insurance experience. Darla started with the agency a little earlier than I did. She's been with the agency since 1989. I started in 2001. A little bit of an overview about Graber Insurance. So we have 8 agents with an average years of experience of 28 years of experience. And we average 28 years with Graber Insurance. I joke with Kyle White, who's our newest agent, that he brings down our average. He's only been with us for a couple of years. So we have worked with public entities for over 40 years. We currently work with approximately 10 public entities within Adams County, including cities, townships, and schools, and we do a lot of the bonding for the various public entities also. We're active members in the Adams County community, members of the Chamber of Commerce's. Mark and I are both members of the Decatur Rotary Club. We work with Junior Achievement, Boys and Girls Club, and then support a lot of the local schools with their boosters and PTA. I've asked Darla to go ahead and review some of the specifics as far as with IPEP, which is the risk management services that we can offer. You should be familiar with IPEP as the Indiana employers.
So IPEP is the workers' comp program, and they do free training to their members. So if we would write with IPEP, then they would provide either on-site or they have a video library that you can do safety seminars. You can do, there's a whole list here, some seasonal training. Sometimes they will come on site and they will try and get a few other entities together and do an actual in-person kind of training. But that is just one of the things that they offer in particular. And again, it is free to those members.
Do they do that to help evaluate our risk?
Yes and no. They not only will do loss control and they will walk through various buildings and say, oh, you need to take care of your fire extinguishers.
You need to
those
fix
kind
this railing or.
Fix the railing.
those kind of things. They will do that
Fall
too.
hazards.
But this is employee training, how not to create injuries, how not to do slip and falls, make sure that the ice is clear, various things like that. But they deal specifically with workers' comp. So it's dealing with employees specifically, okay?
Which of course, as an employee, whether or not they're doing, say, shoveling a sidewalk, it serves a dual purpose. A, we want to make sure that they shovel the sidewalk correctly so they don't get hurt. But B, we want to make sure they shovel the sidewalk correctly so that a person coming into the building doesn't slip and fall. So it is a dual purpose. They also do a lot with OSHA training. So making sure that you have people who are properly OSHA certified, depending on what kind of jobs that they're doing and if that's required.
So
And then we also work with Seville Public Entity, and that gives us, they're a managing broker, so that gives us a greater access to various insurers for public entities. So Seville works with local agencies to write and maintain city and county insurance, and that's what Seville does. They do public entities. So we work with them to make sure that we have access to several carriers, not just the limited few that we might be directly contacted with. Which actually leads us into Travelers, which is your current company. We are direct writers with Travelers. And so if we are chosen to do the risk management and take over as the agency, we could, if it's determined that that's the best place for the county's insurance, premium and coverage wise, we could take that over with an agent of record letter and service that for you. Go ahead, Nyla.
City of Decatur, we've represented City of Decatur since the mid-90s. Various carriers, but we have always been the agent that they call with questions or coverage changes or whatever. On the right side of the page, I just did a little snippet of each department in the city gets a booklet every year. It shows the various autos, the various computers, inland marine and property. And every year they go through this booklet, making sure, oops, I didn't add that car, oops, and we go and take care of it then, or I sold that mower, 6 months ago. We get it off the pot. It just keeps everybody on the same page as far as what is current and keeps everybody up to date with what their current coverages are. So,
Tony, at any point, should we expect should we expect a provider to help with asset management? How does that part?
Well, I think through that audit process, that's important, because you need to have the department heads review.
They need to know what they are insuring.
Yeah.
which is exactly what this booklet does. So the idea of the booklet is similar to a farmer who would keep a record of all of their tractors and what other equipment they might have, on an annual basis.
Yeah.
Now, we update this as those changes occur. So
Okay.
if
And
the
we are
department head calls us tomorrow and says, hey, we sold this vehicle, we sold this piece of equipment, we bought this vehicle, we bought this piece, whatever the situation would be, we would update the policy as those things happen.
Mhm.
And then we keep a record of that. And then at the end of every year, as the policy renews, we can go over with that with each department so that they can confirm that that is the equipment that they actually have.
And our office is already required to submit the capital assets to the state every year.
And that's basically the list that you go off of for insurance.
Right, and we can show you, this is, the city has said that we can share this, so
And this is just a little cut
we
out.
kind of cut and paste because we didn't want to give you like multiple
Yeah.
pages right here.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, so if you guys want to see kind of what this is the administration department, but this kind of gives you an idea of, so like this is all the computers that they have, the city.
Which we would have about 16 pages. like
Well,
that.
again, we break it out by department.
Yeah.
So, and then miscellaneous property, outdoor, like for instance, all of the sculptures that the city owns.
Oh,
Those are all listed on here. And you guys can skim through this if you want, but other properties that the city owns.
Right.
So city building, the police department, the fire department, all of that information. So we maintain all of that for each department.
Yeah, that's nice to break that out by
And so it's
department.
broken out so that, Brad can look at it and say, oh, we got, we're gonna trade this pickup truck for that pickup truck. Oftentimes, sometimes they'll call us and say, we're gonna trade the red truck for the blue truck. That's nice, but we don't actually keep track of things by color, so
And
this
when-
lets them look at the VIN numbers and make sure that they're making sure that we're taking off the right vehicles.
When staff changes in a department, we also need that department to notify us so that we can notify the insurance company, hey, so-and-so is no longer here, they can be taken off.
Right.
So-and-so is here, they need to be added
Especially if
on
they're,
this vehicle.
especially if they're drivers, exactly. And that way we can make sure that we get all
And
the
we do that
necessary driver information. Yeah.
As long as they notify us, we know. about it.
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
I love reading the name of these sculptures. though.
And then we do want to thank you for the opportunity to just come, present, introduce ourselves for those of you who may not know us. If you have any questions or any additional questions, we're happy to answer them, or I've given you all my cards. So if you have a question, once you get back home or whatever, and you get thinking about something, if you have a question.
And I'm assuming that they'll listen to everybody, table it, and consider it for whatever amount of time.
What would you do, or how would you approach assuring us, number one, that we have the right coverage, and number two, that we have the most and best pricing for our coverage? How often would you go through a rebidding process, and kind of what's your strategy there for, number one, making sure we have the right coverage, and number two, making sure we have it at the best cost?
Absolutely.
Well, we go through, typically, it's in 3 to 5 years is a rough amount of time to rebid the whole, with a different carrier. We present all the numbers that we get. So if we have 2 different companies looking at it, we show you both, okay? And we point out maybe this coverage here has maybe some bells and whistles that are.
And I assume you would put together the specifics on what you want, who you want, what you want them to bid for us?
Absolutely, yeah.
Well, yeah, but you come up with, we want $1 million liability. We want a $5 million umbrella. You tell us.
What if we tell you we don't know what we want?
We look at your current,
Yeah.
okay?
Yeah,
And
so
What if the current's wrong?
then we would recommend.
We would definitely make recommendations.
Okay.
Yes, so generally speaking, what we would do, let's say you guys even said, okay, Great Bear Insurance, we want you to do this, but we really like Travelers, so we want to stay with them. That's fine. As long as we feel like they're providing you with the best coverage and the best premium. So what we would do then is go through and review the current policy you have, and then make recommendations if we see things that we believe may be issues. And part of it, what we can do is, part of what we do is use our experience. We look at, what the city has done, what type of liability coverages they carry, what the state may require as far as liability coverage that are required. And then through that process, send that out to our various carriers, Seville, let them take a look at it. Sometimes they might say, well, we need 5 million liability. We can't do 5 million, or we need a 5 million umbrella. We can't do 5 million. Well, then that's an option that we can still present to you, but to let you know, hey, the most that they're willing to offer you is a 3 million umbrella, not a 5 million umbrella. Yes, it's a little cheaper, but how do we go ahead and weigh the difference between the premium savings versus the possible liability? So those are all things that we would look at with you and go over as far as kind of how that all lays out. But to your question, the use of our experience and knowing what, like, for instance, other city and public entities have used as far as the liability limits. Building coverages are a little easier. Coverage for equipment, those types of things. I mean, when Brad buys a new piece of equipment, he's going to have to tell us what it's worth. I don't know what a grader is worth. But he'll know, and he'll know what he paid for it. And the building
We've got an old
wise.
Burmer that we would sell.
Build
250,000 and it's yours.
Darn. Well, my husband doesn't have one of those, so maybe. No, I'm
Sell it to Jake County.
and the building wise, they will have risk management people come in, assess the buildings, determine what the cost would be to replace, repair, actual cash value, those types of things. So really, the liability is where it kind of more is a little bit more subjective as far as
How do you
determining.
do as far as cyber insurance? Because that's something that we've maintained for the last few years.
Yeah, cyber insurance is an option. We have carriers who offer
I
it.
think that is separate from,
It would be it's
Yes.
generally going to be a separate policy.
separate
Your-
coverage from what's.
Your standard policy is probably going to include some cyber coverage, but the amount of coverage that you guys probably need it would more than likely be a separate insurance
Okay.
policy.
Is that kind of the newest, latest and greatest type of coverage that you're seeing out there? Is there something else that you're seeing in the marketplace that you're just selling?
Like wow, bye.
Yeah.
I would say cyber is probably the biggest bell and whistle right now as far as that goes. It kind of is getting a lot of attention, especially with the state changing rules as far as public meetings and them having to be, live and different things like that. It doesn't open you up possibly to somebody being able to weasel their way into the equipment. We don't know, but that's what we insure for.
All right. Well, unless there's anything else, we've had about 15 minutes or so.
What a fast.
Thanks, ladies. Thank you.
So-
Thank you. And like I said, you have my card, so if you have
Yes,
something
very
else.
good. Thank you.
Need to tell the next years we come in.
Uh-huh.
Tell them to arm wrestle for whoever.
Would you like us to stay for any of these cases?
I don't know if you have to.
I don't think they're going to
You're not gonna be
decide
making
today.
Okay.
Wherever you are.
Thank you.
You figured. And Gene.
You guys don't subscribe to the last one in wins the business, huh?
It was kind of like, you want to go? Yeah, sure.
I didn't hear any fistfights out there.
No, we're actually out there talking about, no offense, Mark, attorneys.
See the debate when we hire them.
What's your copy? What's your, oh, that's it, okay.
We appreciate you guys taking time and consideration. I'll introduce myself to those that I haven't had the pleasure of meeting. My name's Billy Davenport. I'm the managing director of Star Insurance Hill Group. Hill Group is probably a unique name to you guys. The name is new to the area, however, our presence is not. We were originally Leland Smith Agency out of 1936 in Decatur. And it's gone through a number of iterations over the years. In fact, Leland's son, Lynn, worked for us forever and a day. He just retired probably 4 years ago or so. Anyway, wanted to explain who we are, what we do. We obviously currently handle your property and casualty business. We're very grateful for that relationship and hope that we can continue that. So first page is just essentially what I just said. We did sell as a insurance agency. We sold ourselves to the Hill Group, which is based out of Richmond, Virginia. And by doing so, we became part of an organization that's one of the 15th largest insurance brokers in the country. What does that mean for Adams County? What it means is we have access into markets that many of our competitors don't, access that we didn't have, quite frankly, before joining Hill Group. We have such a large volume of business placed with these carriers, for instance, with Liberty, who you're currently with. When we're negotiating terms and conditions and rates, it's a different conversation when I have $100 million all of a sudden placed with this carrier rather than maybe $5 million or $1 million. They're a little bit more apt to sharpen their pencil, maybe provide some more coverages or more services that they normally wouldn't provide. So that's the one immediate benefit that we've seen locally as part of being part of Hill. With that
Is the
said,
better access to all the services and.
yeah, it's. I mean, we have. not, now, being a public entity, obviously there is market constriction. Not everybody wants or nor understands the public sector. But with that, it's amazing to see how many different carriers that we, number one, didn't have a contract with, and now you pick up the phone and say, I need a contract, here you go. Whereas opposed before, you got to commit to so much production with them over years. It took a lot of time. Just made that access a lot more widely available for us to provide our clients with. With all that said, that's the national part of it. Carla, my God, I didn't introduce you. I just started talking and I am so sorry. So this is Carla Gureca. Carla is truly the muscle behind your policy. She is.
So see, you should have arm wrestled for this.
I was waiting for it. I was like, I'm going to try out Carla. Do not discount her. No, Carla, if you want to say a few words about yourself.
Yep, I've worked on the county policy since probably almost the beginning when we got the policy back in 2010. So I was trained by one of the best commercial agents that we had, and she's no longer with us. She's retired, but I've just continued to service the account, working with Mary and now with Tony. And I
don't know how many times I've heard that when a question comes up. It's like, I don't know, we need to ask Carla.
Yeah. So if I don't know the answer, I search for that answer. I put the county policy above the other ones to make sure that things are done. Because I know that that's super important as a municipality to make sure everything is covered and to search for those answers that we need. So.
Yeah.
Good.
Always available, and we're right here, right down the road here, which all the agents in our area are. So, but yeah, always available and willing to help.
Yeah, that's the nice thing that we've experienced. Sometimes when you join a larger organization, you kind of get worried about what are they going to do? Are they going to come in and pick us apart and package us off and sell us off to somewhere else? And HILB has done the exact opposite. They've left us alone. So we have these national resources, but still have our local presence and ability to serve the communities that we work, live, and play in, quite frankly. So that's been a very nice thing. And that's probably part of the reason, one of the main reasons we chose HILB.
And then likewise, you're probably working with Tony too, as far as that asset management plan, as far as.
Well, they were here to hear about the asset management plan when they were speaking about it. So, but same thing, as a matter of fact, I emailed Carla for the health department to make sure somebody was insured on that vehicle and make sure that the other person gets insured on that vehicle. It's the same way with highway or anything else. If a vehicle is gone, doesn't need insured anymore, I'm certain that all three agencies would do that. So that's kind of we keep them informed, and it kind of works that way.
Very good.
By the way, it is not Travelers we are with now, it's Liberty Mutual. Just FYI.
Did I say Travelers?
No, you said Liberty.
No, somebody else said.
Oh, okay.
You got it.
I was like, oh, man. Need more coffee.
I thought these guys.
So how often do you think our policy should be rebid with the carrier?
Every 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah, that's been our experience. It's, we want to maintain existing long-term relationships with the carriers, but we also understand, especially in this dynamic rate environment, rates are fluctuating wildly. And we need to keep a really good pulse on what the market's doing. So we feel in 2 years, every 2 years is a good barometer to measure. Now, if something catastrophic happens or something, unforeseen, sure, we'll go out to market the very next year.
And then you guys are usually proactive on that rebidding?
Yes.
Or is it something you wait for us to ask you to do?
No, in fact, I've got a timeline in there, it just kind of explains how that process works from our end behind the scenes, and kind of lays all that out. So, we've got, one thing I kind of wanted to mention to Tony's point, we want you guys to view us as your internal insurance department. That's what we're here for, so we are a true partner of Adams County, utilize us as such. Always reach out to Carlo and myself, any insurance related questions, happy to assist. I did include all of our contact information in the event of an after hours emergency. You can always get a hold of Carla or myself on our cell phone. We're always available. I will notate there is an error in here. This is what happens when they let me put together the proposals. The website, which is on page 5, actually transferred over to page 6. And I noticed that this morning after I'd already found everything. So Word of the Wise don't allow me near a color printer or a binding machine. On page 7, there is the road to renewal stance that kind of explains how we go through that process step by step from a marketing aspect. And we try to work 120 days prior to renewal. We feel that that is when you get the best underwriting outcomes. We try to compress everything into a very short time frame. Insurance underwriters are working through stacks, and maybe they'll pay attention to it, maybe they won't. They'll give you a number, might not be the most aggressive number, and we just feel working on 120 days really, you're going to get a better result that way. So,
Okay.
And part of that marketing process, we have these deep, long-lasting, existing and new relationships, maybe not on a local level, but on a national level with a number of companies that I've listed below that, we utilize quite often on public entity work. These companies have specialty programs and that fit what you guys have. You guys do have a unique set of exposures that others don't. So once again, we have to partner up with the right carrier that's going to serve your guys' needs.
And then you also do bonding?
Yeah.
I don't know how many employees we have that are bonded. We have a
That
bond,
would be by the handle.
Oh, half dozen.
It's ones that handle the money.
right?
Treasurer, auditor, assessor, clerk,
Okay.
quarter.
And then you would handle our cyber insurance also?
Correct.
Correct. And again, that is separate from the county policy.
Yes, it is. It's a
You
standalone policy.
handle it. Who does it? Is that
still
Travelers?
with
That is with Travelers. Travelers is kind of, I would say, one of a handful of carriers that I would consider the Cadillac of cyber liability carriers right now. That marketplace was very volatile probably the past 5 years. It's actually, believe it or not, started to calm down, which is a good thing. But Travelers has got a very robust policy.
And I don't know where that would fit in with broker of record, since cyber is separate from the property casualty that we're looking at. It's kind of two separate things. That's the one that Mike has to get involved with and fill out all of the,
The MFA.
all that. I mean, it's,
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a September renewal date.
yes,
And the
different
payment is
renewal dates,
September.
so two. I think, and I'll let Steve Bailey answer to this because he can word it correctly because he's the one that thought of it. Part of the reason for what we're doing today was so that whomever the auditor is at that time does not have to spend weeks doing all of the gathering of information, all the stuff that I've had to do, and I'm sure somebody told me. For example, Mark and I, and Carla was very gracious last year, Mark and I were in his office on the phone going over all sorts of policy things. I'll bet we were 2 hours, probably. So, Steve, is that initially what you were looking at, is for an agency to come in,
Yeah, I think
be
my thought was, I think we struggled a little bit getting competitive bids. The approach we took the last time, which was to go to multiple brokers and ask them to put together the bids. And I think as a matter of fact, because they were trying to use the same carrier,
Right.
then you could only get one bid from Travelers, one bid from Liberty Mutual, one bid. And so my thinking was at this point, well, let's let's hire the broker first and then let them continue to survey the market for us, which I think is probably what you all have done for us in the past.
That's correct.
So kind of the approach that we tried to take last year didn't work. Kind of fell flat for us. And so that was maybe we need to go back and make sure we're with the right broker first, and then let that broker handle the business for us, do the market survey, bid the market, make sure we're getting the most effective coverage for the least amount of money we need to pay. And I say that with a little bit of hesitancy because, Carla, I've heard nothing but good things about the service you've provided to the county. So the fact that we're looking at potentially replacing you, I hope you don't take personally as a reflection on your service to the county, because it has not been anything. I know Tony speaks very highly of you. And I'm kind of the new guy on the block here, so I haven't had that experience to work with you, but I certainly would not want you to take personally what we're trying to do here today.
No, I totally understand.
Yeah. And honestly, Steve, that's, if I may, that's the correct approach.
Yeah.
We advise our clients, other public entity clients, pick your broker first.
Yeah.
Okay. Don't get too many, cooks in the kitchen, because you inevitably, more often than not, you're going to run into each other. So,
All right, well, we're at about 15 minutes, and so I appreciate you coming in
Certainly.
and putting up with our questions and presenting
we're
to
here.
us.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Unless there were other questions you guys had.
Yeah, nope, I think we're about at our time, and
Okay, great.
All right,
thank you very much. Appreciate
all
it.
right.
Thank you, Carla.
Yep, thank you.
Yep.
Mark.
Now you can go out and arm wrestle the next people.
That's right.
Can you get your name?
Carla, C-A-R-L.
I'll go get the other. Charlie, you just want to get
G-U.
better up. That was painful. Yeah.
Silly.
Bill?
Yep.
Da, 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 da,
Say the best way.
Thank you again for your time.
We didn't say the best looking.
You come in here and get insulted again. Notice, I did not insult you. And I'm here to say, it's you.
No, we're doing this a little bit different this year, so we really do appreciate your participating in the way we're doing it, so.
Well, we're kind of taking that 30,000 foot view today. And we'll get into what we're here for. I'll begin by first saying, our personal note is, I told somebody it's the first time I'm back in this room in a governmental setting since I was on the county council, which is 15 years ago. I looked down and I thought, the room has changed a little bit, but Mark Burry's still sitting right there.
Well, I'm a little bit grayer.
And that's it. I didn't make any comments to the person when they asked about Mark Burry. I just said, that's where Mark Burry sat. 15 years ago, he's still there.
Well, we've been glad to have him and glad for the counsel he's given us.
So good. And he's been good.
Yeah.
So first of all, just thank you for the opportunity for us to come and present our qualifications and commitments to Adams County when it comes to your insurance needs. Dustin Pressman, Doug Nelson, and we're here to talk about basically 3 areas where we feel we fit the need for the county. So we're going to start a little bit with just kind of who we are. So we've been around since 1952, started in Geneva, Indiana, but we've been committed to serving the citizens of this county, surrounding counties, with proper insurance. And I think we have now 5 locations. We're continuing to grow, but we're still committed and domiciled and hub right here in Adams County. We understand the need for a strong community. I understood that when I was in county government. I understand that now in state government. And so we're committed to that. We support the schools, we support our communities, Boys and Girls Club, 4-H's, all that kind of stuff. Very committed to that. I think that's what makes us thrive as a community. We do have both our time and our financial commitments. The 3 of us here today, we represent about 80 years, approximately 80 years of insurance experience. So we're bringing a lot of experience to the table. We also, all 3 of us, are owners of Bixler Insurance. I say next generation. Doug's a few years behind me, and then Dustin's just a kid. But we're committed to actually staying where we are and staying independent and working in the future. So the one thing I feel I maybe bring to the process a little more unique than others, for 12 years I helped craft county budgets. I understand the financial responsibility and the taxpayer accountability in those budgets. I served for 6 years as the chair of the insurance committee in the House, and now serve as a majority leader, but I still carry the majority of the insurance bills because we are a part-time legislature, so you bring your expertise. Along with that has been the ever-changing, and Dustin's going to address this with the markets. We're trying to keep our finger on the pulse of what's happening on a national scale, state scale, because state insurance is all regulated by the state. I've served as our past president of a group called NCOIL, National Council of Insurance Legislators, and it's really been helpful to watch how insurance has impacted governments. And we've had we again kind of had to help move that, navigate that river, and move them in the right direction. So my part of this is I'm not in that so much in the day-to-day operations as these guys are, but I do have my finger on the pulse of what's happening in the world of both government and insurance. And so I think that kind of brings a unique perspective. We rely heavily on our carriers. We're an independent, which means we have multiple carriers. And we rely on them to get the right fit, the right exposure at the right time. And as much as we rely on them, we want you to be able to rely on us. And so that's why I think we bring to the table the best service we can offer, and I think we do a pretty darn good job. I'm going to turn it over to Dustin. He's going to talk a little more about just the market we're in right now with government insurances and things like that. So, Dustin.
So speaking to the insurance landscape, I guess, in general, we're heading into a hard market right now where companies throughout the industry are paying out more in claims than what they're bringing in premium. And that's in all lines of business, auto, property, liability. And there's several reasons for that. One of the primary reasons is inflation. A lot of our companies are giving us data that they're having the same amount of claims, but they're costing 30 or 40% more. So it's just driving rates up through the roof. Plus their reinsurance costs are going up. So all companies across the spectrum in the insurance industry are having to increase rates above average. And we say all that because I want you to be aware of what may be coming down the pipeline for the county specifically. And we feel it's very important in this market to partner with an agency that does have options. And Bixler Insurance has multiple carriers, as Matt said, that insure municipalities specifically. So that's something important for you guys to consider when you're selecting a broker. Some of those carriers we have direct access to, and others we have access to through other brokers. And they have representatives that we could have brought to this meeting with us today, loss control specific representatives or underwriters. We didn't feel this was the appropriate meeting to do that. You were selecting a local agent today, was our understanding, but we just want you to know that if you were to select us, we do have those relationships so we can get other people involved to bring even more expertise to the table. And currently,
just not to interrupt, but
yeah.
You were talking about loss control. Is that something, as far as loss control and risk management, you take an active part in that as far as looking at our facilities and our people and our...
Yes. I mean, Bixler Insurance doesn't have a full-time loss control person, but we as the agents come alongside the companies and their loss control representatives and are involved in that process and then help you guys work through any recommendations that they provide or, to just manage your risk better. So yeah, it's a good question. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. In the past and currently, we insure several municipalities in the area. We insure Jay County, the town of Monroe, the city of Bern, the work comp for Adams County currently. So the exposures that Adams County has isn't anything that's new to us. We also have several clients in other industries that are at at the same premium level or higher premium level than what the county is. So we feel like we have the experience and the expertise that we can manage your account. We're confident we can manage the account properly. Just kind of to summarize that, we feel Big Star Insurance brings a great combination of experience and ensuring accounts like this, and we have access to all the necessary markets to whatever the future may bring. So I'm going to turn over to Doug, and he'll talk a little more about how we specifically would service the account.
Yeah, so I'm not as eloquently spoken as Matt, and not as long-winded either, so I'll be a little bit more brief than what he is.
Nobody
sorry-
is.
Sorry, Matt. Politicians.
Being recorded, you know. Remember, I'm on this side of the table. Save your criticisms.
So basically as working with Tony in the past over the work, or I guess we've had the work comp for, gosh, I don't know, since 2007. So we've been able to bring our expertise on the work comp side, you know, working with you, working with Tony and everybody else involved. So what we want to do is, between the joint efforts between Decatur and the Byrne office, there's never going to be any type of lack of support or customer service or anything that you might experience. That will never happen. If you do choose us as the agency of choice, we want to make that transition as simple and smooth as possible. We would want to review all the coverages with Tony, just to make sure for accuracy and any type of changes or anything like that we could make going forward. We would, on a 3-year basis, to kind of alleviate what happened in February with the bid process and, you know, the markets being blocked, we would want to, on at least a 3-year basis, remarket the account internally so that it alleviates Tony from having to put together bid specs and getting all the information and numerous emails.
Well, that's why, hopefully this is a better process than the way we did it
that's-
last time.
That's what we want to
Yeah.
help.
Part of the problem was waiting for information that everybody needed.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I wasn't given that information until
Right. Yep.
later in the process.
Yep.
Yeah.
But for us, remarketing the account, you know, every 3 years at least, or I mean, if you guys think the premium's getting out of hand, you know, just let us know.
Well, I think it's interesting when you talk about the hard market, because, you know, I was having a discussion with somebody last night, and he was talking about the huge increases, you know, from not only the insurances, but the reinsurers, because of, and he was kind of referring more to an increase in claims, but when you talk about inflation and increased replacement costs, that makes more sense too. So it might be a real hard environment to bid policies out. I don't know, but it's kind of it's got to be kind of scary for you guys too, a little bit.
It makes it a little bit easier if we have it in-house. That way we've got control of what, you know, vehicle changes, increases in building coverages. We have all of that in-house. It makes it a lot easier that we're not missing something that might have been on the previous policies, that, you know, we know exactly what's there. So it makes it a lot easier for us to remarket that account internally. Because we have all the information, we have all the loss runs, we have all that stuff that's easily accessible, you know, instead of waiting for a week or two to get that information, you know, so. But I mean, that's just all part of the normal bid process, but that would alleviate a lot of work on Tony's part to, you know, for us to do that internally.
Well, it seems like a more fair, it just seems like the right way to do it, I guess.
Yeah, I believe so too.
Probably wasn't good for Dustin or Barb or everybody else, because as I was I was just emailing it out when I got it, so it was all kind of piecemealed together, which also required work on your guys' behalf, and it became a lot of work as far as establishing what coverages we have, what the amounts are.
Yeah.
I was saying earlier, Mark and I were on the phone for a couple hours or more in his office trying to figure out how much coverage do we need on this, Yes. All kinds of things. I don't remember what all we discussed, Mark, but it had to do with maximum coverages and like courthouse and all this good stuff that, you know, is beyond probably our expertise to know.
Do you think in this kind of market, would it be smarter to reevaluate more often than 3 years?
I don't know. I don't know if companies really don't like to look at least in my experience, they don't like to look at a larger account, like every year or every other year.
Oh,
You know, because the markets really don't change that quickly. I mean, in some instances they do, but very rarely do they change over a year or a 2 year period.
You normally,
So a 3 year period is usually pretty good time to market those.
and you might end up with, you know, the carrier that's not successful starts to back away when they're not successful. Because why do I go through this every year?
Yeah.
We're not gonna get the business, right?
right.
Well, every 3 years, it makes them a little, everybody's a little hungry every 3 years versus I just keep doing the same thing every year.
Yeah.
Right.
So we kind of play that, look and see what's the right time to do that. And,
Yeah.
you know, and I think on that, on kind of the hard market too is one of the concerns that we have is outside, more on the legislation side, is there's a big push on this litigation funding. Mark can vouch for that or talking to it or against it, but it's some private equity firms are coming in and basically funding these large claims. And it's pushing now beyond that, hey, let's just settle this and move on, to we're going to fight this through the court system because now I got someone backing me financially. And so what it's done is it's pushed some of these what they call nuclear verdicts, these really large verdicts now, even some of them exceeding the liability limits of the entity. And so we got to find a way to kind of put a lid on some of that. But it's also now pushing carriers out. You know, if all of a sudden governments become the target, which there's a little bit of immunity, but if you start targeting governments, how many carriers go, we're out of government business, right? You're seeing that in manufacturing. You're seeing that in some others where the carriers just got stepping back and are walking back. That's the hard market we fear the most. Premium is one thing. To come in and say you're going to get a 30% increase, nobody likes that. It's none to walk in and say, we don't have a carrier to write what you need because
Right.
they've all backed away from the market. That's the hard market we are monitoring probably the closest because we can talk about price, but we have to have a market.
So you think some of the carriers are backing away from public entities?
I don't know the public entities necessarily, but I think everything's on the table now. Say I've been in this business for 30 years and I've gone through a hard market with access to carriers. I've been through a hard market with rate. Those two are now kind of on a collision course with each other. We're going to have a hard market. We're going to have hard access to the product and the high rate when you finally get it. And that's where I think the key comes in for an agency like ours that has those accesses. We have those carriers we've had for 20 years. We've got a good relationship with them. And we could vouch for the client. We can say, look, we're not dealing with somebody who's going to maybe take this to market every year and put you in jeopardy. They want that longevity. But, they got to stay competitive, because we're out there with your best interest. So there's that balance of making sure that we're just finding the right carrier. That number one, there's carriers who would come in and quote buy business in the past. I don't think you're going to see that as much today because they don't have the ability to service and or provide that when it shifts. They just get off the account. So, the companies you have now, the companies we have access to, I think are also committed. I would say for the near future, pretty competitively. But we're just kind of, you got to watch that horizon. That litigation funding, I was just at a conference 2 weeks ago, that's a huge issue we've got to address. Some of the problem is too, that we ran into is some of the carriers, I think, wanted to actually visit the jail. Yeah. To see before they
Inspect,
Yeah.
be inspected.
Yeah, to inspect the jail and so forth. So that's another portion of, I assume I don't know if all carriers do that. I don't know how.
You're going to get more and more of that. I mean, I complain to these guys all the time and they get tired of hearing me say this, but I said, when I started this industry, you took a picture of a house with a black and white Polaroid picture and the company was like, we're good to go. Now they're coming out with 5 inspectors and flying drones over your house, and it's like, what? They're wanting more and more detail because they know this is getting more expensive. And so they're not going to say, hey, send us a photograph of the jail, we're good to go. How does that jail operate? Are there potentially things in that jail that are going to cause us not only a property cost, but a huge liability exposure?
And that's part of the risk management.
That's part of the risk management, also part of the underwriting for a new carrier coming in
is we're not gonna loss control something we don't currently have. So what are we gonna get? What are we out here to bid on? And it's a jail. Well, tell us about the jail. It's a nice jail. Okay, we get that, but can we come and prove to ourselves that it's a nice jail? You know, and I think that's where, you know, what we would bring to the table is bringing multiple carriers to that first initial, hey, this is who has it, we can handle that, but here are maybe some other options, let them come in. You know, and it's not something we have to say, hey, Tony, they're gonna come and talk to you. Tony, they can come through us. We just need to have access, right? I can call Dan and say, Dan, you're free Thursday afternoon, we come up and walk through your jail. I got a company that's gonna be here, you know, and kind of take Tony out of that process, because these kind of things.
Do you guys have access to our current carrier?
Yes.
We do.
Yes. And we've had them for some time, as one of our, in-house carriers.
So depending on what you would want done this year, we would be selected. We could remarket it, but since we just went through that process last year, you could elect to stay with Liberty Mutual and just make us the agent of record on it. And then we could reevaluate it in the coming years. But yeah.
How would you help us understand whether we have the right coverage, not the right carrier, but the right coverage?
I would say that, and again, in my years of experience, I've told people insurance is all about transfer of risk. You know, what you're willing to cover yourself, I won't charge you for, obviously, and what you want me to cover, I'll charge you a premium for. So when you look at property, you know, I've had people that are insuring an old barn for $5,000, they have a $5,000 deductible. So you ask them, why do you have this barn on your policy? Well, it's just always been there. Take it off, right? Don't pay the $45, whatever. So we would like to look and analyze, okay, how do you have this building insured? Is it insured properly, number one, for value? Two is, are you willing to take more risk, higher deductibles? That's one thing you're going to see in a hard market is we'll stay on this, but we need to push you from a $10,000 deductible to $25,000 deductible or a $50,000 deductible on some of these properties. So, I mean, that's the discussion you have to have, but that's the discussion we want to have. And that is that we feel like there's some things we can maybe look at. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here, but Dustin and I are both CICs. Doug's went through the classes of CIC. Those are more like, it's like going and getting your bachelor's degree or your master's degree in insurance. It's where you're laser focused on risk analysis, loss control, you know, even doing some analytical stuff on calculating a potential loss. What brings us to do is I can sit down and look at a risk now and say, you know what, let's talk about this. You may not want to do this, right? Because this is going to create this exposure, that exposure. You know, it's like the people call and say, I want to buy my 16-year-old Mustang GT convertible. You might not want to do that, okay? I mean, so we just have to have that discussion. So I think what we'd like to bring is, when we have that, if we become the agent, have that in front of us is to do an analysis of that to say, okay, guys, this might be something you want to shift around or change, lower your cost, or you got your kind of exposure here, we don't think you got enough coverage. You may need to raise that up.
On the workman's comp side, do you ever work with employees as far as risk management?
With the employees, me personally?
As far as training or any kind of programs that would decrease their risk?
The loss control, I believe, has, whenever they do have a claim, loss control or the adjuster works with them directly to try and get them back into a return to work program.
Well, and I mean, even before that, as far as any kind of
Preventative. Oh, from a preventative?
preventative stuff, yeah.
Yeah, I think the loss control comes in on an annual basis on those and goes through all of that with, I think with, Shannon, do they come in? They haven't come in? Haven't they really?
I've been here since June of 21 and I've never had anybody.
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Oh, yeah. All right,
That's gonna be
well,
great.
I think we've kind of gone past the time that we've allowed the other agencies, so.
Probably because Matt's long-winded, apparently.
Because I'm long-winded.
Eloquently spoken.
But, yeah, hopefully this is a better way for us to make a decision, and so.
And I think obviously you have, if you don't, we can give you all of our contact information so that if you have further questions, you can reach out,
Okay.
you know, offline, and be happy to come back if need be.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for passing on your agenda.
other than commissioner hours, so yeah, you can stick around. and You could keep us here till 2 or 3 o'clock.
No. And Eric, I apologize, you haven't changed either.
Oh, good. Thanks, Matt.
I said Murray's here. There's been other people after you,
Yeah,
but Eric
he was
just
here
wasn't
before me.
sitting.
That's right, yeah.
I can still remember
Years
from
ago.
the old, the courthouse.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. All right, thanks again, yep. All right. I don't see anything else on the agenda. So, do you guys have anything else?
I don't.
I'll take the motion to adjourn if anybody
So
wants to.
moved.
All right.